Okay guys, so let's have a look at question 6, which is naming a few different ionic compounds. You are expected to know sort of the first 20 elements, and so you are expected to be able to name these here. So that includes a few of the sort of the tricky ions. So the first one here is basically we've got Na is sodium and O is oxygen. So it expects you to know that much. And when they combine, they form essentially a compound called sodium oxide. So if there are only two elements, a metal and a non-metal, so in this case sodium is a metal and oxygen is a non-metal, if it's just the two, the ending changes to "ide". So same sort of deal for the next one. We've got potassium chloride. So that's a combination of potassium, and normally it's chlorine, but it becomes chloride when they couple up. For the next one, we've actually got lithium. Li is lithium, and OH is this ugly hydroxide ion, which you can see just down in the corner here as part of the next question there. So the name for this next one is lithium hydroxide. I misspelled that, droxide. So that's a little bit of a mean one because you've got the hydrogen in there as well. So OH is hydroxide. It's one of the ions you need to know the name of, one of these ugly ones in the next table, and we'll go through the whole list of them when I get into that question. But lithium and OH in this case is hydroxide. The next one, we've got aluminium. Now the brackets and the numbers doesn't matter for the naming. You've just got to look at what's in there. So we've got aluminium, carbon, and oxygen. And so in this case, it becomes aluminium, carbon 8. Now, this is really this is quite typical of like compounds like this. If you've got a metal and aluminium, a non-metal, in this case carbon, and oxygen joining in as well, then the ending is 8 instead of ide. So if it was just aluminium and carbon, it would technically be aluminium carbide. But because it's got the oxygen in there as well, it becomes carbonate. So the next one here, same sort of deal, numbers don't matter. For the naming, it is sodium. We've got sodium metal, and then we've got sulfur, but instead of sulfur, the ending changes to 8. So sodium sulfate. So again here, the oxygen doesn't have to feature in the name if it's an addition, if it's an adding on to as a third wheel. So we've got sodium, a metal, sulfur, a non-metal, and oxygen joining in, so the ending changes to 8. And a good example here is if we had just Na, it would be 2. Not sure if I can do a lowercase 2. No, it won't let me. So it should be a little 2 S. Sorry, it won't let me do a little 2 there, but Na2S. That would be sodium sulfide. So it's got sodium and sulfur. If it's just the two, the ending changes to ide. That would be sodium sulfide. If we had oxygen as well, like in the one above it, then it's sodium sulfate. Now just to reiterate though, if you look at this one, for instance, sodium up here, if it's just sodium and oxygen, if it's only two things, it still has oxygen in the name. It just changes to ide. So sodium oxide. If we have just sodium and sulfur, it would be sodium sulfide. And if we've got sodium, sulfur, and oxygen, it becomes sodium sulfate. Alright, so that sulfate is telling you it's sulfur and oxygen. Both of them are attached to the sodium. Awesome guys, you got to know the names of the elements to be able to do these type of questions, but otherwise it's really just that rule. If it's just a metal and a non-metal, the ending becomes ide. and if it's a metal or non-metal plus oxygen and oxygen in addition, then the ending changes to 8. Awesome.